My name is Claire Jennings, I'm 24 years old, and I was raised in a quiet suburb outside of Madison, Wisconsin. I still live there actually, though living sometimes feels like the wrong word for what I do. I exist, go to work, I show up to family dinners. I smile when I'm supposed to, make jokes, I laugh. But behind the laughter, there's a silence that no one in my family talks about. And I've learned to keep it that way. Before I tell you what happened that night, let me ask you something personal. Have you ever had to pretend everything was fine, just to survive? Have you ever smiled while your stomach turned? Laughed while your mind screamed? If you know that feeling even a little, then you're not alone. Here we share the stories no one else dares to. The moments behind closed doors. The truths we carry in silence. Subscribe to the channel if you want more than just entertainment, if you want to feel seen. Because what I'm about to share, it's not just a story. It's the moment my life quietly split in two. It was a Sunday evening in late October. The kind of evening where the sun disappears early and the house smells like roasted chicken and apple cider. My mom had made her special stuffing, my dad was already on his second beer, and I was seated between my younger brother Lucas and my cousin Mariah, who was visiting from Chicago. We were laughing at something Lucas had said, some dumb joke about his college roommate. I was mid-laugh when my phone buzzed in my lap. A quick, sharp vibration against my thigh. I glanced down, assuming it was a group chat or maybe a work email. But no. One message. From a number I didn't recognize. Get up and don't say a word. First I thought it was a mistake. Spam text. But something about it, something in the wording, felt pointed. Intentional. And then a second vibration. Now. Backdoor. Leave your phone. My stomach turned. There was no name. No context. Just an instruction. And a command I didn't understand. But couldn't ignore. I looked up from my plate. Everyone was still laughing. Still eating. I pushed my chair back slowly. Claire? My mom asked. Smiled too wide, too fake. Just need the bathroom, I said lightly. I left my phone face down on my seat and walked calmly toward the hallway. Then, instead of turning toward the guest bathroom, I slipped into the mudroom. Opened the back door and stepped into the night. The October air was sharp, cutting through my sweater like needles. The neighborhood was quiet, leaves rustling in the wind, porch lights glowing amber. I stood frozen for a moment on the porch steps, wondering what I was doing. Then I saw the car, a black Honda Civic parked at the edge of the street. Windows tinted, engine running. The driver's side door opened, and out stepped Lena, my sister. The sister who, according to everyone in our family, had moved to Oregon 6 months ago. The sister I hadn't seen or spoken to since the day she walked out after a screaming match with my dad, a fight we were never allowed to mention again. Get in, she said. Lena, I whispered. What the hell is going on? Please, Claire. Just get in. I bade. We pulled away from the curb in silence, my heart racing. Took me 2 full blocks before I found my voice. They think you're gone, I said. They think you're in Portland. Lena's knuckles tightened on the wheel. That's what they were supposed to think. But you're not. No. I stared at her. Why? She didn't answer right away. Then softly. Because I found out the truth. About Dad. About what he did. And once I knew, I couldn't stay. But I couldn't let you stay either. I felt like the air had been sucked out of the car. What truth? Yes. He pulled onto the highway and said 4 words that changed everything. He hurt someone, Claire. He hurt someone, Claire. Those words sat between us in the dark like a third passenger. Silent, suffocating, and impossible to ignore. I turned toward Lena in the passenger seat. Her profile lit only by the occasional flash of streetlights. Her jaw was tense, her eyes locked on the road like she couldn't afford to look away. What do you mean? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Who did he hurt? She didn't answer right away. Instead, she changed lanes, took an exit I didn't recognize, and kept driving down a narrow side road that led toward the lake. Lena, talk to me. She finally pulled the car into an old gravel lot at the edge of a wooded park. The kind of place where people used to sneak off in high school to drink or hook up. No lights, no other cars. Just the sound of wind pushing through brittle trees. She turned off the engine but didn't open her door. "I didn't come back for long," she said. "I only have a few hours. But I needed to see you. I needed to warn you before it's too late." "Too late for what?" She finally turned to me. "Do you remember when I was 16, and I stopped going to theater club?" I frowned. "Sort of. You said you got bored." I lied. Her hands were shaking now, resting in her lap. "There was this guy, Alex. He was our stage manager. 24. Kind funny. Nothing ever happened between us, okay? Nothing inappropriate. But we talked a lot. He helped me with a monologue once, after rehearsal. We were sitting in the parking lot just talking. And Dad pulled up. My stomach clenched. He didn't say anything. Just stared at Alex. The next day, Alex didn't come back. A week later, we heard he moved out of state. No goodbye. Just gone. You think Dad scared him off? I know he did, Lena said. Because 2 nights later, Dad came into my room. He didn't yell. He didn't punish me. He just sat on the edge of my bed and said, "You're not old enough to know what kind of man he really is." Then he smiled. And left. That didn't sound like our dad. At least, not the version I'd known. He was gruff, opinionated, sometimes too quick to anger, but never menacing. I wanted to tell her she was wrong, that she'd misunderstood. But then she pulled out her phone and showed me something I'll never forget. A screenshot of a police report, dated April 2019. The name listed under person of interest, Frank Jennings. Father. The report was short, vague. An incident involving an adult male confronting a minor and an adult staff member in a school parking lot. No charges filed. No follow-up investigation. Why didn't we know about this? Yes. Because Mom buried it, she said. She convinced the school not to press anything. Said it was all a misunderstanding. That Dad was just being protective. I stared at the screen. I thought that was it, Lena continued. But a few months later I started noticing things. Dad getting more controlling, reading my texts, questioning every friend I had. And then, I found the folder. My eyes snapped to hers. What folder? She hesitated. In his garage cabinet. The locked one. He had photos, Claire. Of us. Of our friends. Even of you. Printed screenshots of your Instagram. GPS logs from a tracking app one didn't even know was on my phone. Felt sick. "You're lying," I said, even though I knew she wasn't. "I'm not," she whispered. "That's why I left. That's why I told everyone I was moving out of state. I couldn't be near him anymore. Why didn't you tell me before?" "I wanted to. But you were still living there. Still trusting him. If he found out I talked to you, I didn't know what he'd do." I sat there in silence, trying to reconcile the man who made us pancakes on Saturdays with the man who tracked his daughters like they were suspects. "Claire," Lena said, "I think he's done worse than scare people off. I think he's hiding something bigger. And I think you're in danger." When Lena dropped me off near my apartment that night, she didn't hug me. She just pressed something into my hand, a USB drive. "Everything I found is on there. I made copies. Don't look at it at home. Not if you think he still checks your devices." I nodded, too stunned to speak. She paused before getting back in the car. "One more thing," she said. "He told me something once. After I found the folder. He said, 'If you think I'm the bad guy, wait until you meet your grandfather.'" Then she drove off into the night. The next morning I called in sick to work. I went to the public library downtown, sat in a quiet corner and plugged in the USB drive. What I found made my blood run cold. Not just photos, not just names, but surveillance logs. Locations. Notes in shorthand I recognized from Dad's old job as a private investigator. He hadn't quit that line of work after all. He just changed his targets. His own family. The library was quiet, eerily so. Just the occasional click of a mouse, the low shuffle of feet against carpet, the soft humming of the old HVAC system overhead. But inside me everything was chaos. I scrolled through the contents of the USB drive, my pulse loud in my ears. Each folder was neatly labeled. Name. Lena's. Lucas's. Even Mom's. Inside each one, screenshots of emails, messages, calendar invites, locations. There were audio recordings, low quality, distorted, but unmistakable. Lena talking to friends. Me on a phone call I barely remembered, telling a coworker I felt watched lately. He had been recording us. But why? And how? My hands were shaking as I opened the final folder. Archives, RJ. I didn't recognize the initials. At least not right away. But when I clicked inside, the first document answered everything. A scanned letter. Robert Jennings. My grandfather. Dad's father. A man I'd never met. A man no one ever talked about. The letter was dated 1981. It was written from prison. Frank, they're never letting me out. Your mother stopped writing. I guess I deserve that. But you, don't let them turn you into me. Don't let the rage win. You're smarter than I ever was. But if anyone ever comes looking, you burn everything. All of it. Understand? Tapes. Photos. The notes. They don't get to bury me. They don't get to rewrite who we were. Burn it, Frankie. Ed. I stared at the screen for a long time. Then I searched the name. Robert Jennings. Sentence 1979. Federal charges of wiretapping, unlawful surveillance, obstruction of justice. A small article on page 3 of an archived Wisconsin newspaper. Private investigator pleads guilty in major surveillance scandal. Hit me like a truck. Dad hadn't just learned to spy on people. He was raised by someone who did. That night, I went back to my parents' house. I waited until after dinner. Until I knew Dad would be in the den watching his usual reruns and Mom would be upstairs, probably folding laundry. I went out to the garage, heart hammering in my chest. The cabinet Lena had mentioned was still there. Metal. Rusted around the hinges. Padlock. Had to know. I grabbed Dad's old toolbox and found the bolt cutters. My hands weren't steady, but the lock snapped quicker than I expected. The door creaked open. And there it was. Folder. Black, thick, heavy. I pulled it out and sat down right there on the concrete floor. I opened it carefully, half afraid of what I'd find. It was worse than I imagined. There were photos of Lena in high school, at rehearsal, walking home, in her room, sleeping. I felt my stomach twist. Photos of me too. From college. At parties I never even remembered him knowing about. Screenshots of conversations with friends I no longer speak to. Transcripts from therapy sessions. Therapy sessions. That should have been impossible. I remembered telling him once, years ago, that I was seeing someone for anxiety. He'd played supportive. Encouraged me. Even helped pay for the sessions. He must have bugged the office. Or bribed someone. Or both. Put the folder back. But not before I took photos of everything with my own phone. When I walked back inside, Dad was standing in the kitchen. He hadn't been watching TV. He'd been watching me. Looking for something, he asked, his tone light, casual. But his eyes were sharp. Froze. No, I lied. Just needed the flashlight. He stepped forward just once. I hope you're not letting your sister fill your head with nonsense. I held my ground. She's not lying. He tilted his head. And if she isn't, what then, Claire? I think you're the one who should be worried about that. He stared at me. Then slowly he smiled. Not warmly, not kindly, but in a way that made my stomach twist. Careful, he said. You don't know everything yet. And then he turned and walked away. That night I didn't sleep. I sent the photos I took to a lawyer Jillian connected me with. Someone who specialized in digital privacy and harassment cases. She called me back immediately. This goes beyond creepy, Claire. This is criminal. You need to file a report. I hesitated. He's my dad. She didn't respond right away. Then she said, Sometimes the people who raise us are the ones who hide the most. The next morning I met Lena in a church parking lot. Neutral ground. Empty and quiet. I handed her the USB drive back. "You were right," I said. "About everything." She looked relieved but also incredibly sad. I didn't want to be. I told her about the folder, the letter from Grandpa, the surveillance. Then I asked, "Do you think Mom knew?" Lena didn't answer right away. Then she said, "I think she knew enough to be scared." The question now wasn't just what to do with the evidence. It was how to survive the storm that would come after. Because if Dad had gone this far to hide his obsessions, what would he do to protect them now? I used to think I knew what evil looked like. I thought it was obvious. Dark, loud, monstrous. The kind of thing that came crashing into a life with rage and noise and violence. But now I know better. Sometimes evil sits at the dinner table, tells bad jokes, cuts your birthday cake, and kisses your mother on the cheek like nothing's wrong. Sometimes it's quiet, calculated, and it knows how to smile. After leaving Lena, I went straight to Jillian's office. She had printed everything I'd sent her. Photos from the garage folder, audio files from the USB, the letter from Grandpa Robert. She laid them out across a long table like evidence at a trial. "This is enough to open a case," she said. "But once we do, we can't take it back. Are you ready for that?" "I don't know," I admitted. "Claire, if we do this, your family will fracture. Your father might face real charges. You might lose people you love." I looked down at the pictures. Of Lena asleep in her bed, of myself hugging a friend, of messages that were never meant to be read by anyone else. "He already broke it," I said. "I'm just refusing to stay quiet about it." We filed the report the next day. It felt surreal, walking into the precinct with a manila envelope full of evidence against the man who taught me how to ride a bike. The officer at the desk raised his eyebrows when I said the suspect was my father. But by the end of the meeting, he wasn't raising anything. He was taking notes. They opened an investigation that same day. A warrant was issued to search my parents' house. I wasn't there when they arrived. I couldn't be. But Lena was. She insisted on it. She stood outside the garage, arms crossed, while officers removed hard drives, cameras, 2 old laptops, and the folder I'd already photographed. My mother stood on the porch, arms wrapped around herself, silent and pale. My father wasn't home. They called him. He said he was on a business trip. He didn't specify where. And then he vanished. No one heard from him for 2 days. When he finally resurfaced, it wasn't in person. It was a letter, mailed to my apartment. No return address. Just my name in blocky handwriting I recognized instantly. I opened it with trembling fingers. Inside one page. "Claire, you never understood what it takes to protect a family. Your sister was always dramatic. I expected better. You were the one I trusted. You think exposing this makes you brave. But all it does is break things you'll never be able to fix. You'll regret this. Promise you, Ed." I read it twice. Then I set it down and cried for 30 minutes straight. Jillian forwarded the letter to the detective in charge. It was added to the case file. My father was officially labeled a suspect in a stalking and surveillance investigation, with historical ties to unlawful privacy violations, and a known connection to a convicted felon, his father, involved in federal surveillance crimes. The detective told me something that chilled me to the core. "We think this might go deeper than just your family. We're looking into his old clients. Some of them may have paid him for information he wasn't legally allowed to obtain. In other words, my dad might not just be a controlling father. He might be a criminal with a network of secrets spanning years." I started staying with Lena after that. Neither of us slept much. Every time a car passed, I flinched. Every time my phone buzzed, I felt like throwing it across the room. But we found a strange comfort in being scared together. And we kept digging. We found emails hidden in the metadata of old photo files. Private logs saved in cloud folders we didn't know existed. And a list: names, dates, license plates. Some were former boyfriends of ours. Others, People we'd never met. Who are these people? Asked. Lena shook her head. I don't know. But I think Dad was following them for someone else. Or maybe just for himself. Mom called once. Just once. Her voice was hollow. Your father says this is all a misunderstanding. That you're exaggerating. I'm not, I said. I don't know what to believe. Then believe this. I found photos of you too, Mom. From inside the house. From the hallway. He was watching you. Silence. Then. I need time. I wanted to scream. Shake her. Beg her to choose us. But instead I said, okay. And hung up. 1 week later they found my dad. He was in Montana. Alone. Driving under a different name. When they arrested him he had 2 cell phones, 3 fake IDs, and a locked briefcase full of encrypted drives. He didn't resist. Didn't speak. Just smiled. The trial will take months. Maybe years. But in the meantime the truth is out. People believe us. And for the first time in my life, I feel something I didn't know I'd been missing. Freedom. It's been 4 months since they arrested my father. 4 months since the carefully crafted illusion of my family shattered like thin glass under pressure. Some days it still doesn't feel real. Other days it feels too real. Like I've been living underwater and only now reached the surface, gasping for breath I didn't know I was missing. The investigation is ongoing. There are more victims than we expected. 3 former clients came forward, confirming that my father sold them surveillance data on their spouses. One of them, an ex-cop, said Dad helped him track a woman who was hiding in a domestic violence shelter. When I heard that I threw up. This wasn't just about my family anymore. It was about how far one man was willing to go to maintain control, and how many others he quietly helped do the same. He hasn't spoken since the arrest. Not to police. Not to lawyers. Not to us. They say he's uncooperative, possibly planning to claim mental instability. But I know better. My father is many things, controlling, secretive, manipulative, but crazy is not one of them. He knows what he did. He just doesn't feel sorry. My mother still lives in the house. Alone now. I visited twice. The first time she barely looked at me. Just offered coffee and small talk like nothing had happened. I wanted to scream. To shake her out of it. The second time she broke down. I didn't know, she whispered. Not like this. I think you did, I said gently. But I think you couldn't face it. And I get that. She nodded. We sat in silence for a long time. I don't know if we'll ever be close again. But I don't hate her. I just grieve for the version of her that couldn't protect us. And maybe for the version of me that thought she ever could. Lena and I are closer than ever. We moved into a small 2-bedroom apartment in a quiet part of town. We each have our own keys, our own rules. We never track each other's location, never read each other's messages, never pry unless we're asked. Because now we know what it's like to be watched, to be followed, to have your privacy stolen by someone who claims to love you. We don't take freedom for granted anymore. I started therapy again. Real therapy this time, with firewalls, privacy clauses, and a promise that no one will ever hear what I say unless I choose to share it. Some sessions are heavy, some are silent, but all of them are mine. And that matters more than I can explain. Nathan, my old boyfriend, reached out recently. He said he read the article Jillian published, that he had no idea what I was going through when we were together. I just want you to know, he wrote, that you're one of the strongest people I've ever met. I didn't write back. Not because I was angry, but because I didn't need to. His validation used to mean everything to me. Now my own voice is enough. Jillian's story went national. It was titled, The Man Who Watched His Family, a Private Eye Turned Predator. It made people uncomfortable. Not because it was salacious, but because it was quiet, unassuming. The kind of story that makes you wonder if you'd notice it happening in your own home. The article ended with a quote from me. We're not just healing from what he did. We're healing from the silence we were taught to maintain. I still get texts from old classmates, co-workers, neighbors. Some say, I never liked your dad. Something always felt off. Others say, "He was always so kind to me. I can't believe it." But the ones that stay with me are from strangers. "Thank you for speaking up. Your story gave me the courage to leave. I thought I was the only one. That's why I'm sharing this now. Not for drama. Not for revenge. But because someone out there might still be sitting at a dinner table, smiling, laughing, while hiding a secret they've never dared to say out loud. And if that's you, I want you to know, you are not alone. If this story meant something to you, I invite you to subscribe to this channel. Not just for the stories, but for the strength they offer. The kind that grows in the quiet. The kind that says, "Me too," even when you're afraid. Here we tell the truth. Even when it costs us. Especially when it sets us free.